60 years ago today, Wendell Scott made his first NASCAR Cup Series start, and today on Out of the Groove, we will be joined by his grandson to talk about his legacy on and off the track. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to a special episode of Out of the Groove. This morning, I had the great pleasure of talking to Brehanna Daniels, the first African-American woman to be a part of a NASCAR pit crew, and Warrick Scott, the grandson of NASCAR Hall of Famer Wendell Scott and CEO of the Wendell Scott Foundation. And really, this episode is about the two of them, almost interviewing each other, having a conversation about what Wendell Scott's legacy means to both of them and how it's affected their place in NASCAR. The two had some remarkable stories to share, so I'm excited for you all to hear them. This video would not have been possible without the help from Norfolk State University, Brehanna Daniels' alma mater, as a matter of fact. So for more information and to learn how to enroll, check out that Norfolk State University link down in the description below. Also, you can learn more about how you can support the great things the Wendell Scott Foundation are doing by clicking their link down in the description below. But I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's go now to Brehanna Daniels and Warrick Scott and hear the stories they have to tell. Welcome to a special episode of Out of the Groove. Today I have the great pleasure of being joined by Brehanna Daniels, NASCAR pit crew member, and Warrick Scott, grandson of NASCAR Hall of Famer Wendell Scott. Thank you both for being on the show. I know you both have some very interesting stories and perspectives to share. And today is also a significant day because today is March 4th, the 60th anniversary of Wendell Scott's first start in the Cup Series. So I want to turn things over to you two primarily, but first, Brehanna, what does Wendell Scott's legacy mean to you?
It means a lot. When I first joined the sport, I'm like, there isn't really anybody that looked like me in the sport, So I, did my research a little bit. And I'm like, oh, Wendell Scott. I'm like, the time that he started, things weren't. I'm not gonna say things weren't fair because they're still not fair now. But he really had a tough time, and that gave me motivation to want to do this thing. So, it definitely means a lot. He's definitely a pioneer and a trailblazer for sure. So
absolutely. And Warrick, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but what does your grandfather's legacy mean to you?
It is, he was my hero. Day to day, he was my hero. He passed away when I was 13 years old. So he was also the man that picked me up from school, took me to school, sleepovers at Papa and Grandma's house. I knew that Wendell Scott too. So his legacy means all of the family type of memories I have. So many memories have been generated just from his unique career that he was in. What his legacy means to me externally or globally, his sports story is one of the greatest stories globally in sports. What he was able to achieve and how he was able to achieve it under the circumstances and the pressures that he was under is amazing. I have an aunt who worked in the pits with my grandfather at different times, working on the race cars and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she was able to participate in a wonderful article that was written on Brehanna for today's show. And I just think that he would be so proud of her, and seeing what she can do and seeing the way she snatches those tires and seeing her endurance and her strength, but also the intellect and the mental bandwidth that goes into the task that she performs. We know that it's not it's not just something you can walk into and just do. It takes a great amount of sacrifice and dedication in order to do so. So,
definitely.
Brehanna, in our opinion, you are a hero, in the same light as my grandfather. And we want as many young girls, especially African-American youth, we want as many to know about you and what you've achieved. And the grace and the grace, the way you do your thing is it makes our community proud.
Thank you. Warrick, I had a question for you. At what point did you realize your grandfather was Wendell Scott? Just.
Yeah, he I recognized it, I guess around 5 5 years old, you know, whenever the adolescent memory chip kicks in, as soon as I can remember something, you know, you know, I knew, because I grew up playing at the garage and sitting in the old race cars and stuff, you know, because he worked on race cars pretty much until he couldn't anymore. And I would notice two distinct things. News crews and camera crews would always come up to the garage. And it would always be journalists around. Always journalists, people writing books and stuff like that. They would, and I would notice, I would always ask like, "Hey, Papa, when is this guy leaving?" And he'd be like, "Oh no, he's here for 2 or 3 days, or he's here for a week, or whatever." Because people had always tried to, in different aspects, document what he had gone through. You know what I mean? So that's kind of when I, and then another quick add in, because I know you're a former baller. I'm a baller myself, right? And my father is a legendary high school coach in Virginia. And so when I was growing up, my father coached me in basketball at Laurel Park High School in Martinsville, Virginia. And my grandfather loved to travel to my father's games. And you know, when you make it deeper into the regionals or into the state, then you start traveling different places and within the state, right? And so I would be sitting in the car with him, and he would be taking me through these back roads and stuff really, really fast on the way to these high school basketball games. And when we would get to the games, the way people would crowd around him, and he would sign autographs and stuff at the high school basketball games. So that's how I kind of realized, like, you know, he's something extra special about him. So I wanted to ask you, what's it been like for you on your journey within NASCAR, right? What's it been like when you entered the sport? Naturally, you came from Norfolk State University. You were a student athlete. And once you cleared the combine, right?
Yeah.
Once you cleared it and you knew it's suit up day, what was that like for you? What was that first moment for you? What was that like?
I was nervous, man. Definitely was nervous. Just before I even got in the sport, I was like, what? Like when it was first brought to my attention, I'm like, why would I want to join something? There's nobody here that looks like me, you know? So then like once it was that first day, you know, I was ready to suit up. Here I am. As soon as I get to the track, you know, wasn't wearing much, had an all black shirt on, black pants, black glasses. I was just blacked out, had a black duffel bag, right? And I can just immediately feel the stares, like as soon as I walked in the track. You know, I got in there. You know how you could just feel like somebody's looking at you? Yeah. So I'm just getting all kinds of stares. I'm like, okay, I see what kind of day it's about to be, you know? And I'm like, you know, well, there aren't that many people out here that look like me, so I might as well just get used to that, you know, just witnessing that. I remember, you know, I reported over to the team I was pitting for. So I did an ARCA race, my very first NASCAR race, you know, series below. Yeah. You know, that's where most drivers get their start, and, you know, pit crew members as well, before we make it up to NASCAR. So I had, you know, got in the track, and I immediately reported over to the team I was working with that day. I remember my driver's name was Dale Shearer. You know, he's a little, you know, heavier set guy. And then I met his sister. She was like, hey, girl, you know. I said, hey, you know, my name is Brehanna Daniels. I'll be changing the rear tires for you guys today. I'm your rear tire changer. So at that point in time, I'm trying to meet everybody on the crew, you know, the front tire changer, the front tire carrier, rear tire carrier, jackman, gasman, all that. So I had met everybody, you know, at that point in time, except for my rear tire carrier. My rear tire carrier. So, you know, I'm sitting here like, okay, well, I hope he shows up, you know, before race time. You know, all the training I did up to this point, I had a rear tire carrier. So, you know, still like as I'm walking around, you know, pit road and everything, you know, people are still like, you know, looking around like, you know, who's that girl? You know, if looks could speak, like, who is she? You know, what is she doing here? But of course I didn't see anything until somebody came up and talked to me or something. So when it was time to get ready for the race, usually like nowadays there's like team haulers, you know, there's more privacy where you can go change your clothes and stuff. Well, you know, since it was my first race, I'm like, I don't know where to change. I'm just going to go to the women's restroom, you know, hopefully there's nobody in there watching me change. So, you know, walked over to like, it's like a little trailer / women's restroom, walked in there, and it was just me and another, Caucasian lady. She was in the mirror doing her makeup, putting her makeup on real fast as if she had to see like her boyfriend or somebody that she likes. She's trying to hurry up and get back out there. So I'm sitting here changing, and she sees me put on, my fire suit and stuff, and she slows down, from her speeding up, she slows down. She's like, are you a NASCAR driver? And I was like, no, I'm a NASCAR tire changer. And she dropped her makeup and ran over and gave me the tightest hug. She was like, oh my God, thank you so much for joining our sport. And that made my eyes watery because I wasn't even expecting something like that to happen. Just from like all the, yeah.
Is that the moment when did you realize that you had made history? Did you think about that on the way to the track, or was it after the race? You know what I mean? When did the moment that you realize, okay, I have done something that history will document, right?
Yeah.
You're one of one.
Uh-huh.
That's what Jay-Z said, right? One of one, none before, none to come, right? You're the first one, right? So when did you realize that?
So of course, like when I first walked in the track, it didn't like register in my mind, but it wasn't until like, I want to say like the next day after we went back up to Rev Racing, where Coach Phil Horton and Max Siegel and all those guys are, the NASCAR diversity program. We're sitting there watching film, and Coach Phil Horton, he pauses the film and he's like, wait a minute, y'all. He said, I don't think it's another black girl out here doing this. I haven't seen another black girl out on pit road. He said, Brehanna, he said, you're the first one to do it. And I was like, what? Like immediately chills just went through my body. Like, I'm like, whoa. Like there hasn't been one like, before me. And it's like, that's when I realized, then all the guys are sitting there, pushing me like, let's go, and then my coach Horton was like, I'm really about to beat on you,
right.
Making sure you're on top of everything.
And the wonderful thing about it is that, you are in a position in a sport where you absolutely positively, I know you agree with me here, you have to earn every single thing that you get, every single moment, every breath you take, every experience, you have to earn it. And it just says so much, I think, for women as a whole, right, of the great capabilities and the things that women are capable of doing. I think that story is still by far and wide untold, right? I mean, you are inspiring a whole different generation right now, by that one moment, how that rolled into that one moment. It makes me think about my grandfather's first start, March 4th, right, today, in Spartanburg, South Carolina, 1961, and he made the decision that he was going into the premier series of NASCAR, and then he was not looking back. So, just talking about that moment, and you having such specific memories of that moment, it just made me think about some of the things that he had to encounter just to make it to the race, at that time. And there's so many nuances, like you were talking about where you were going to change, right? Where you were putting your fire suit on, they had to consider things like where they would be able to get gas, right? Where they would eat, where they would sleep. He always carried 2 or 3 of everything in his hauler to the races, because if his car broke down and stuff, he didn't have the luxury of just going to the local store or whatever, sending somebody out of the track to go get some. He didn't have that luxury, right? So when you think about being a historic first, it's just an amazing opportunity to highlight dedication, right? And the Wendell Scott Foundation, we utilize dedication in the form of STEM education. And so can you tell us, what did you major in? I'm curious, what did you major in when you were at Norfolk State University? What was your focus?
So I was at Norfolk State. I came in my junior year, and that's the year that you have to declare a major. I was a nursing major before I got to Norfolk State.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, literally when I was being recruited from all the different, because other schools were recruiting me as well, for basketball. Right. But they literally were telling me that, it's impossible to balance out both basketball and nursing, being a nursing major because of the clinicals off campus, practice, we're traveling, playing basketball on the road. Like, it's just not that, and they were just telling me like, look at UConn women's basketball roster. Most of them go to the WNBA, and most of them are like, mass communication majors, and it's nothing really serious because they know they're going to the league afterwards. So pretty much, I ended up being a mass comm major when I got to Norfolk State University.
I was a mass comm major too.
Yes, because at the time too, I'm still an aspiring actress, like outside of NASCAR.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here thinking I couldn't really be a theater major, because still with that, like auditions and stuff, like plays, like I was traveling, playing basketball, so I wasn't gonna have time to do that. So I'm like, what's the next best thing that I can do? And I'm like, mass comm, I can still do like TV production stuff within that major. I was like, let me do it. And then once my dad told me, he was like, Bree, just because me and your mother are nurses, you don't have to be a nurse. And it just took for me to hear that. Sometimes we want to follow in our parents' footsteps. So he was like, do what you want to do. And I was like, you know what? And that's what I'm gonna do. Mass comm, baby.
All right. So did you consider the responsibilities of the pit crew life, right? Can you share with us a little bit about? I know a lot about it because my father and my uncle were my grandfather's pit crew. Can you share with us what the behind the scenes culture and some of the responsibilities that the pit crew members have, some of the demands maybe it puts on your body, right, or your hands or your back?
Yeah,
you got to go to bed a little earlier than some of the homies sometime, right?
Yes.
Those things. Can you share a little bit about that?
Definitely. Obviously, being a pit crew member is not being a stick and ball athlete. Coach Phil Horton made that clear once I joined the program. My whole 6 month, I had a 6-month training course from September of 2016 to February of 2017, of me learning the ins and outs of what it takes to be a pit crew member. He came to practice with a bag, literally with a baseball bat in there, with a softball bat, basketball, football. I said, you guys are no longer these athletes, you're pit crew members. He literally drilled it in our heads. But being a pit crew member, you have to be strong, you still have to. That's why Coach Phil Horton, Max Siegel and them, they specifically recruit those, women and men who are previous athletes, or lifelong athletes. Like by myself, I'm a lifelong athlete. So I played basketball, all the sports growing up. Definitely, since I'm a tire changer, that was very, very different for me, just putting the basketball down and just picking up an impact wrench. I remember when I first started doing it, my hands were so sore. Just from the impact wrench is like a little heavy by itself. And, me doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the taps all day, trying to get that to build that muscle memory. And then once my impact wrench gets hooked up to the nitrogen tank with the hose, and then you got to add all the pressure, and it's like, then it can be out of control. You got to have that strength, and pretty much for, everybody has a job, in the pit crew, for short people, most short people are going to be tire changers, the next size after that, people who are between 5'7", 5'10", or tire carriers. And then the jackmen are the tallest. Jackmen and gasmen are the tallest. Usually the gasmen are the heaviest men, because them, it's 100-pound gas can they got to hold, to fill up. And, it really didn't make sense to me in the beginning when there were people saying oh, pit crew members aren't athletes, but it's we are athletes.
Oh, absolutely. You were talking about the impact wrench, and it just made me think about one of the artifacts that we have left from my grandfather's career. And they did not have impact wrenches for many years into the sport. The other teams had them, but they didn't. And
so how did that work?
Well, he took the socket that would go to the plug, and he welded it onto the tire irons. And so that's how they were able to, quote unquote, save time in the pits. And if they were having an issue, sometimes he would actually hop out of the car and help pit his car and then hop back in. And we still have these things. And so just hearing the stories growing up and then seeing the things that they used, and then watching, one of the wonderful things about NASCAR races when I watch them with students is that I can say, hey, you see what they're doing in the pits right there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody sees it. So yeah, my dad and my uncles used to do that with Chuck Taylors on, blue jeans and a white t-shirt.
Uh-huh.
No
Dang.
suits, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
No knee pads, any of that. They did that for years and years and
Uh-huh.
years. And it's just kind of profound. I want to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you mention that you were still, have some other aspirations and acting. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll be successful in that endeavor, no doubt. Have you ever considered being a driver?
You know what? A couple times.
Okay.
I consider
Do
being a
tell,
driver.
do tell, tell us more. What would you got? Because I was thinking, I said, you know what? Because when you have part of participating in anything is having the prerequisite learning that goes with it, right? And
Yeah, right.
in the pitch now, understanding the sport from inside out versus outside in,
Uh-huh.
knowing what to expect, knowing what the responsibilities are. What's it going to take to get Brehanna Daniels, behind the wheel? Are you interested? Because I want to be the first person to ask that question, if that's the case. I want to know, are you interested?
Nobody's really asked that.
I'm asking. Wendell Scott's grandson is asking you, would you be interested in driving?
Look, it's came to my mind, a couple times. But it's not easy. A lot of those drivers, they've started out at a very young age. You know what I'm saying? Like racing go-karts and all those other things.
Right.
I figured since I'm in NASCAR, it'd be easier for me, but it really doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? So
well, there's some ways for you to fast track the learning. Now, I'm not gonna let you wiggle out like that. There's some ways to fast track that learning gap, and knowing what you know, and your competitive nature, and just your obvious. This is Women's Month as well, right? And we want to celebrate women for every single thing, in totality, right? And so I wouldn't sell you short if you can make the transition from college basketball to the task that you're performing in the pits now. I wouldn't sell you too short. I think if you put your mind to it, that you could probably.
Hey, so Warrick, what has it been like on your journey to promote your grandfather's legacy? How has that route been for you?
Well, it's been actually it's had some challenges. It really has, because part of Wendell Scott's legacy has been told, but great parts of it have not been told.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started the Wendell Scott Foundation, we were pursuing partners and different people that would help us expand our mission in order to provide students with opportunities, right? And opportunities.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to have good partners. You have to have a certain level of visibility. Naturally, operating in the world of nonprofit, every day is an ask, right? Every day is a possible, connector for support. And so we started out very much like my grandfather's career, which was kind of unsponsored, under-facilitated, plenty of calls during Black History Month, not many calls after that, tons of pats on the back. We love what Wendell stood for and what Wendell did, but, sometimes not able to secure, the sponsorships like we talked about. It's funny that word sponsorships is a running theme, right? It keeps floating in the air, right?
Yeah.
And so we faced our challenges, but we just kept working. And year after year, things began to change for us. I had an opportunity to work with Disney Pixar to create a character called River Scott that was featured in the last Cars 3 film. And I established some wonderful relationships over there with Jonathan Garson and Jay Ward and those guys. And that helped elevate our profile. We were already doing the work in the community. We have 2 after-school programs called Steering to STEM that has race car simulation, and we use iRacing to provide that level of programming. We also have Camp Cultivation, where we work with historically Black colleges and universities like Norfolk State in order to provide a 3-day living scenario for students to be able to come in and learn and feel what college is about. So we were able to kind of hit those benchmarks along the way. And in doing so, it helped raise our profile. But as our profile was raised, we were able to do more for students. And just even most recently, we have secured an educational partnership with Norfolk State University, your alma mater. And so
Okay.
we're excited to be able to have our footprint exist in the Tidewater area as well. Because Wendell Scott is not just a legend in sports, he's a Virginia legend first.
VA in the house. Okay. Yeah.
So we're just, we're just gonna keep doing the work and keep establishing our footprint wherever support is needed. We've recently established a new company called Wendell Scott Ventures in partnership with my good friend Dave Stewart from Lion Forge Animation. You may remember Mr. Stewart's name from Worldwide Technology and some of what they were able to leverage Darryl and Petty Motorsports over the past couple of years. So we've just established a company called Wendell Scott Ventures. And we are rapidly working on some projects in film, documentaries, apparel and merchandise and those things. So this year is going to be a wonderful year for the Wendell Scott legacy. And also, this is my grandfather's 100th birthday this year. August 29th will mark his 100th birthday. So a ton of great things going on right now. And so I think you may even see some appearances with our logo here behind us. I think we may even make it on the hoods of a couple of cars coming up. Races coming up soon. So it's just sky's the limit, right? We're just gonna keep working. Grandfather used to say, "You can't swim standing on the bank,"
Right.
So that's that's our perspective.
I'm sure your grandfather would be proud of you for continuing on his legacy. So
well, thank you. I in closing, I'd like to say I think my grandfather would be proud of us, and especially you, because you're the one doing the work. You're going to war every weekend, and you are an amazing representation of our culture, Norfolk State University, and what we stand for. And so we lift you up and we salute you. So thank you for what you're doing as well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Eric, that's it, man.
Absolutely.
Conversation right there.
I appreciate it. Well, Warrick, Brehanna, thank you both for being on the show and sharing those stories. I know I got a lot out of it. I'm sure our viewers did as well. So thank you a lot. That was super fun.
Absolutely.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you again to Norfolk State University for making that possible. Again, check out that link down below for more information. And if you want to learn how you can support the Wendell Scott Foundation and their mission, you can click that link down in the description below as well. But that's all I've got for this special episode of Out of the Groove. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR news, predictions, rumors, and we often have very special guests like we had today join us as well. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. I could not do this show without your continued support. We'll have plenty of news stories to catch up on tomorrow, and we also have some exciting announcements regarding the Out of the Groove podcast network, and maybe some more here very soon as well. So thank you all for the support. I will see you in the next video.